All right. Hello, everybody. This is Miss Bikarski again. I'm just going over domain and range in set and interval notation. We've kind of covered this a little bit in our previous unit, but we're going to be going over a lot of different parent functions. And so I really need you to understand the difference between set notation and interval notation. Most of you have previously pretty much just been using set notation. Some of you may have seen interval notation in like Algebra 2, depending on what your teacher or how much your teacher had time to go into it. The biggest difference is that there's lots of different possible options with set notation. With interval notation, it's pretty much parentheses or brackets. You can see you have a bracket here or parentheses here, and this is a conjunction here saying and. It just represents and or. I'm not going to go over all the stuff about set notations in the video just because you've seen this before tons and tons of times in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, even in elementary school. The teachers use set notation. Now that we're at pre-calculus, we're pretty much going to stick with interval notation. Once you get into college, you might get a question like, you have a problem where the domain is x cannot equal 4. What would be the domain in interval notation? So you'll have to convert it to interval notation. But pretty much once you're in college, all of your answers need to be in interval notation, not set notation. So we're going to pretty much be doing that throughout the rest of the year. Anytime we look at a graph or a function and talk about the domain and range, it'll be in interval notation. So you should notice that on your notes you have a lot of blank spaces. I just need you to go through, fill out all the blank spaces, make sure you get all of them, and then make sure you compare the difference between the set notation and interval notation. For instance, if your formula is just x equals 4, you can put the domain as x, such as, this line right here just means such as x equals 4, and then these little squiggly things. I like to call them sideways mustaches. I think they're called braces or something like that. I don't know. I prefer to call them sideways mustaches. Now, there are some times where in interval notation you don't have anything or you can't set anything up. In this case, and that's the case here. And then in this one, x cannot equal 4. So it equals all real numbers. This is the symbol for all real numbers. And then notice we have a parentheses here because we can't ever get to negative infinity. And then to 4, and then close parentheses. And or open parentheses 4 to positive infinity, close parentheses. Okay, so a lot of times with interval notation, you'll have 2 parts or maybe even 3 parts to your domain or range. All real numbers, negative infinity to positive infinity. Again, if there's no solution, there is no domain or range. Okay. Also, this one's not applicable. Excuse me. I can pronounce the word. Notice here how, whoops, it looks like I had a typo here. This should not be an equal sign. So if you had this example here, then you would set it up like this. Remember, this line right here is just a such as line. And you would set it up like this. But notice we don't have, in interval notation, we don't have any inequality symbols at all. And we use the bracket here because of this equal sign here. Okay. So this would just read the domain such that x is between -2 and 4, and x can equal 2, or -2, excuse me. So notice we have the bracket -2, comma 4, and open or close parentheses. This takes a lot less space and a lot fewer symbols. Okay, That's one thing that you should notice about your interval notation. There's a lot fewer symbols there. All right, so let's look at the other notes. The rest of those you can just fill in the blanks. Let's see, note that for interval notation, if less than is used, we use the open parentheses. If greater than is used, we use the close parentheses. If less than or equal to, we're going to do brackets. We use brackets if they include the endpoint. That means we can actually land on it, or parentheses if we cannot include the endpoint. Also note that since we never actually get to negative or positive infinity, we only use parentheses with them. This symbol here, R, means all real numbers, everything on the number line. And N means all natural numbers. So the difference between real numbers and natural numbers. Natural numbers are your counting numbers, the whole numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. Your real numbers, you can have halves, you can have decimals, you can have negatives and positives. And then this symbol here is a symbol you could use for no solution or no answer. Honestly, we don't use that very often. And again, you'll usually use interval notation for domain and range in your college algebra, college pre-cal, and then in this class as well. All right. Hopefully you've gotten all those notes filled out. Hopefully you filled out all the blanks. You will need to put this in your notebook and refer back to it as we go through the rest of this class so you can find the domain and range of your graphs. All right. Bye.